Greetings and welcome to an almost exciting edition of Alan Reads. Today I'm going to read from my short story collection, and this particular story is called Reboot. Reboot. "Which one do you want?" said the voice. I looked around confused. Before me were two paths, not metaphorical but literal. Everything else was indistinguishable. It was all hazy and blurry. "What do you mean?" I finally replied. "The left path will return you to your world as it was. It'll be vacant of those that chose the right path. They will be on the other world," said the voice. I stared with a blank expression as they explained. "The right path is to a new world with true equality. No one will starve or be treated worse or better than another." "Do you have any more details than that?" I asked. "Yes. The new world is identical in geometry." "If the new world is identical, then how will starvation cease and how will everyone be equal?" "I am on the new world and will care for all your needs." I shifted my eyes, but they refused to look away from either path. "Didn't people promise this before? Didn't it end in poverty, war, and corruption?" "I am incorruptible." "Are you a dictator or a god?" "I don't believe in gods. What means can you only be a dictator?" "It is your decision," the voice said with no emphasis, like a robot. "So everyone on Earth has this same decision. A lot of people will go to your new world. What will happen to my old world, with roughly half the populace gone?" "It is of no concern of mine. Your world has no desire to help one another and achieve true equality." I can only imagine what sort of totalitarian society this mad robot god was tricking humanity into their own imprisonment. "No, I'm going home." I walked left to go back to my home world. I didn't take into account just how bad things had become in 2020. More people than I expected took the offer and abandoned Earth. I woke up in my empty house. My whole family left. I walked the streets for hours, finding no one. I did find people, though. Throughout the city, there were maybe 7 people. We searched every hospital and every home. It took months. We left spray paint messages and even hijacked every radio tower to broadcast as far as we could. The internet still worked, as did most things, at least for the time being. The strange thing was, every person we found consisted of people I really got along with. We all had a sense of patriotism, duty, freedom, and we need to make one another stronger. We traveled the whole country to find any that refused to give up on Earth, humanity, and the good old US of A. It was easier than I thought to organize. We formed a community. We even held an election. I didn't win, but Frank, the man, did. I liked him. I wouldn't admit it, but my secret vote was to Frank. It had a sort of nostalgic sound to it, almost like Franklin. We thought of him as the new FDR. After President Frank united the United States, we had a 7-point plan that was quite solid. First, gather everyone. Second, provisions for now and the future, which included water, food, clothing, shelter, and all of us worked quite hard on that one. But we knew scavenging was an eventual dead end, so the citizens of the Commonwealth, all 42 of them, banded together to ensure we would thrive. The third order of business was to ensure knowledge would not die out. This one was easy. All we did was maintain the libraries. Jill was an adept librarian, and everyone liked her. I don't mean sexually. I mean she was homely and friendly. Besides, Frank married her, and the First Lady also became the Secretary of Education. The fourth was to keep technology from falling. This one was a bit harder. We were not so technologically savvy. Smartphones still worked, and we could still make phone calls, but we knew that sooner or later that would fall into disarray, unless we maintained the network. 3 guys were put in charge of that. We nicknamed them the Three Stooges. Well, they weren't as funny, though they thought they were. All the same, they did a fantastic job of duct taping the network together. The fifth was to prepare us physically. Every day we trained and molded our bodies into superior versions of ourselves. Normally I don't buy into the self-help crap, but Frank made a compelling argument, and no one could deny it. The sixth was to combat ready ourselves. I didn't at the time understand the point in being combat ready when the entire populace comprised of 42 people, but it made sense when Frank finally revealed the seventh part of the plan. We went international. Frank changed his name to Franklin Roosevelt, and then we announced to the rest of the world that President Roosevelt was ready for diplomatic relations. The responses received from every country was questionable to say the least. It came to no surprise that the entire world also had the same two-planet option we did, and that most of the world went with option B. Mexico was the first country we took over. All 6 Mexicans surrendered to the USA. We didn't want a bitter neighbor, though, so all we did was make Mexico the 41st state. No one remained in Cuba and Puerto Rico. We didn't bother to check the smaller island nations and islands. Canada put up a bigger fight, though, but lost in the long run. Dominguez, a former Mexican, was, in my opinion, at least a great soldier. He accepted our ways and country. I don't care what the others say, but I would vote for Dominguez. The war with Canada lasted 2 days. It was brutal, but eventually they surrendered to our terms. All 24 Canadian citizens reluctantly accepted American status as the 52nd state. When we felt they could be trusted, we issued them their uniforms and citizenship papers. With the new reformed 42-state union, President Roosevelt proceeded to conquer Europe. Europe didn't even fight us. All 112 Europeans shrugged without a fight. In whispers, we called them cowards, but smiled at the new 53rd state named Europe. Asia was next, and those guys put up a fight. We lost almost a dozen good men in those brutal battles. After we conquered Asia, we moved on to Africa to find just one guy. He laughed as he shook hands with the president for a picture. The king of Africa was allowed to retain the title of king for namesake only. King was an odd fellow, but like with everyone else that remained, we all got along even after the fighting. The Australians numbered in the low 20s and stood no chance against us. After the new United States evolved into the United Earth, the United Nations agreed that one nation was appropriate. Nobody from outside of the original U.S. wanted to keep the USA title. They argued that they weren't even in America, but I shook my head at their ridiculousness. In the name of peace, we agreed to call ourselves the United Civilization of Earth. Thus it came to pass, world peace was achieved. After 2 years of war, rebuilding society, and committing to world peace, we turned our attention to the obvious. What happened to the rest of humanity? Where did they go? With our collective intelligence and ingenuity, we searched using the powerful telescopes into the stars. At first, everyone thought it was Mars or Venus, but after consulting star charts, we actually discovered a new planet that rotated the sun, also in the Goldilocks zone. This new planet, some would call Counter-Earth. Most of us called it Commie Earth. We disliked them immediately. They abandoned their homes, families, world, and species for whatever was on that world. "Should we contact them?" I asked. "Are they enslaved?" Another asked. This question cascaded into a series of assumptions. The robotic voice did tell us everyone they would be equal and all their needs would be cared for. Why would anyone do anything to do that? The answer was clear. It wanted the slave labor and used buzzwords like equality and cared for to lure in the duped masses. We listened in on their radio transmissions. Apparently, they still had television, Netflix, and all those forms of distractions. It was quite clear that they were being oppressed. The United Civilization of Earth needed to rescue them from their captivity, so they could return home where they belonged. How could we possibly get there? Even if we built a rocket ship powerful and accurate enough to make the trip there, we would have no way to bring billions of people back here. Then Frank, who was quite quiet up until that moment, finally spoke. He looked contemplative and frustrated by something. "Everyone, I need all of you to watch something." He picked up the remote and turned on the big screen. He turned on Netflix. Not our Netflix. He turned on their Netflix. He scrolled through to their top program. The cover showed President Frank standing before our new flag. "Is that?" I tried to ask, but Frank held up a finger. "Just watch." Frank clicked to watch the program. "How did you pay for their Netflix?" someone quickly asked. "I didn't. They're commie Earth, so everything is free," Frank said. We watched every episode of the 3-season show that was titled Hillbilly Earth. It was perfectly captured, except the editing job included laugh tracks, zany sound effects, and the occasional comment from the host. Those comments were not dignifying. Then, after we watched that, we saw a documentary of their side and what they went through. As mad as we were of how much of a joke they made us out to be, we had to know their story. The people that chose the right found themselves in an exact replica of Earth itself. The being that created this place remained a mystery. This place had no pre-built cities, but as it said, everything was provided for. Humanity here, on their world, had 3 things that everyone had access to. First, there was a limitless supply of energy due to all uninhabitable land being covered in solar panels. But they weren't exactly solar panels, but they functioned similar enough. Second, everyone had a personal device that could actually alter matter however one saw fit. It was incredibly easy for a person to just make their home however they wanted. An automatic railway system was constructed in a matter of days, allowing easy travel to anywhere in the world. The third difference in this world was a sort of aura that surrounded everyone. This aura, because I have no idea what it actually was, acted as instant information about any person one would be dealing with. It ensured that miscommunication was impossible, dishonesty was impossible, hostility was instantly detectable, and ensured perfect communication. A man would know for a fact if a woman was genuinely disinterested. Of billions of people, rape actually ceased to exist. They, like us, united as one people. Crime became impossible. Mental health issues were immediately addressed, fully understood, and appropriately dealt with. Once they fully established their society and world, certain aspects, such as Netflix, continued. This was how we watched their world. "So, there you have it, gentlemen," Frank said. I stood up angry. "They're making a mockery of us." "It's not just that. I can tolerate their uses of freedom of speech," Frank began. Does anyone see the real problem here?" Frank scanned the room, waiting for anyone to answer. Everyone was dead quiet. "They're prisoners. That weird aura concept strips a man of his private thoughts. Yes, there is a clear measure of peace, but the cost, I say, is too high." What could we possibly do about it, Frank?" I asked. "There is only one course of action. We must go there and destroy that thing." "What thing?" "Whatever sentient monstrosity that holds them prisoner. Be it robot, god, or devil, it must be stopped." "How can we possibly stop a god? Even with access to nuclear weapons we have here on the real Earth." "It won't be easy. But we have to save those people. We have to pull the wool out from over their eyes." Frank began pacing the room. "If we can just get to the people over there to listen to us, then we could stand a chance of saving them." "Frank, they won't listen to us," I insisted. "I think they will. In fact, they are. Don't you see? They've been watching us this whole time. All we have to do is prepare our argument with elegance, grace, evidence, and we can begin to undo their commie brainwashing." We knew it was a long shot, but we worked really hard at writing a speech. The words of President Franklin Roosevelt, in my opinion, were legendary. We prepared the perfect background, which had both our old flag, which Frank insisted was essential, and our new flag. The music was serene and beautiful. We really outdid ourselves. We aired it over our airways, knowing they would receive it. Season 4 of Hillbilly Earth opened up with our speech. We watched with anticipation, knowing that this would be viewed by the vast majority of Commie Earth. It showed the entire speech unaltered in the perfect format we presented. We didn't anticipate one thing that was automatically added. We could see the aura of Frank as he spoke. We instantly understood his intentions. While we were originally inspired by Frank's words and leadership, we saw him for what he really was. Frank's ego outmatched his desire to help them. He didn't want to help them. He wanted to rule them. He cared more about his own power than he did about humanity. All of what he did was for him. We realized that Frank was no different than any and every politician. Civil war broke out between the UCE. We ended up lynching Frank. No one is in charge, and anarchy runs rampant. Everyone returned to their countries of origin and kept to themselves. The lonely king of Africa was not allowed to join any other nation. I watched their Netflix and discovered that Season 4 of Hillbilly Earth was their highest ratings season. They were more than happy to show us ourselves. Their YouTube was filled with millions of videos making a mockery of us. Well, the United Earth fell back into the countries they originally were, and everyone sort of just left everyone alone. Me and the 30 other remaining Americans remained in our small community with no desire to pursue foreign relations. Everything fell in decay that we did not maintain, which was about 98% of the world. Eventually, we could no longer tune into their Netflix, as we were incapable of performing maintenance on the satellites. We lost interest in that commie Earth anyways. Me and Jill are set to get married this spring. Well, there you go. Reboot.